Hey everybody, welcome back to the Level 1 playlist on Tim Kelly's Master Photo Techniques. Last time I left you with a few questions because we went 15 minutes on the last segment, and we still have a couple of things to cover. Among them today, we're going to do exposure compensation, because I know a lot of you do use an automatic mode, whether it be full automatic program or the others. You need to know how to override what the camera is deciding. So there are a lot of other things that we need to take care of as far as explanation that we didn't cover. One of them that I feel is extremely important is exposure compensation. And that's just one little button and one little dial that can save your life, because if your camera is making all the decisions, you need to know how to override those decisions. The other thing we're going to look at is strobes. Of course, this little camera has one built in, and this little flash is very dinky, very tiny tube, and it's not the prettiest kind of light. It will suffice in situations where you need something and you don't have enough light, but there's many other options. So I'm going to take you through those real quickly here today. So let's first address the exposure compensation. This is where you can change the amount of light, brightness and darkness in your shot, even while it's in automatic. So on the back of the camera, we have a button. It's on this little cannon, it's on the top, but it's indicated by a plus and minus. And by hitting that, you illuminate a bar that is from -3 to +3, and that's usually stops. And we can just go ahead and override, make things lighter or darker, even while we're still in automatic. That could be program mode, AV mode, TV mode, or speed, shutter speed, priority, and also in full automatic you can do this. It's a great way to get the look you want, because the beautiful thing about digital is you can take a picture, see what's happening, and say, whoa, it's way too bright, and you don't know how to change everything to make it right, so you just hit exposure compensation and run that wheel left or right for light or darker. Now, you may realize that this is a very tiny little flash on here, very small, very specular, not the greatest quality in the world. So we're going to show you now how to use other strobes. And that's important because you can do that with this camera. So let's get on with the lesson. You don't have to stick to the little flash that's built in. It's convenient for you, but you can use a lot of other devices. This is what's called a hot shoe, meaning it's connected, to the camera for synchronization. And on automatic modes, it can adjust the flash itself. But as I said, it's kind of a dinky light. It's not that great. There are supplemental flashes or little strobes. They call them speed lights nowadays, more than anything. Strobe, flash, speed light. Speed lights can go on here, and they could be from a $99 one to a $600 one or more. So I'll show you one that I've used for years, and it's a Canon, goes with the Canon. So it's the 550EX, which is an older model, but I've used it successfully for a long time, and I have a couple of them. It has the matching hot shoe, so when we slip it on there, it's ready to communicate with this camera, whether it's an automatic or manual. So we'll go ahead and slide that on there. There we go. It's got a wheel on it, boom. So now you've got yourself a very pro flash on the camera. And this one, this is a really good one, and it might cost more than the camera. I'm not really sure right now, but it will put out a lot of light, plus give you the option to spin it and to pop it up in the air and bounce it off the wall and do all the fancy things, candid and wedding photographers do. But you can do that with this little camera. So that's just one option. Now we'll take that guy off. Now I'm not going to teach you about the strobe, this particular one, because it has got all kinds of controls, from fully automatic to fully manual. You could set it to go 1/64th power if you want. And then the other solution is wireless, and you have things like this Pocket Wizard, which is a remote control for flashes. And it just goes on there the same way the flash does. And I see I can turn it on here. and chances are it will fire all the strobes in the room. It's talking to a receiver on one of the other lights, and it's radio controlled. There's infrared, but radio control works well for me. But with a device like this, I can turn on all the other lights at the same time. So if you're just starting and you have 1 or 2 lights, this would be called a radio trigger, a slave, a wireless connector, transmitter, and this works really well when you want to get wires away from your camera, okay? So those are some of the options that you have. The last thing I'm going to show you today involves demonstrating both the shutter speed, high-speed shutter, and which we'll do outside, and also another actual examination of when we would use exposure compensation. The camera is set for AV at the moment with 0 compensation. I'm going to go ahead and take this photograph, letting the camera decide the exposure of this flag on the back porch, which is going to be backlit for sure. It's going to come out dark, like almost silhouetted. So there we go, and of course I'll put it on screen, but it's backlit, so it's shadowed. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to, as we just talked about, exposure compensation, and we're going to make it brighter. Let's see, go here. Here we go. And we are going to make it brighter by opening up a 1.5 or so, stop and 2/3, shooting. The same thing again, still in automatic. And now it's lit correctly. Of course, the background is blown out, but compared to a previous shot, here we go. This is the automatic one. I'm sure you guys see that in your pictures all the time. It averages out the scene and makes an exposure, but your subject is no good. So with compensation, it's still completely automatic, but I raised it 1.5 clicks or 1 2/3 clicks brighter. So that's what happens there. The next thing we're going to talk about is high-speed shutter, and that would be used largely for freezing action. And we're going to try and give you an example of that as well. And we're going to go to a mode here of TV, and it's an automatic, and the shutter speed is up here, and you can see it's going down. This would be normal. You're shooting at 100, 200th of a second, but for freezing action, we're going to raise it up a lot. Let's go to like 1,000th of a second, maybe 1250 or whatever, something like that. That's going to freeze most action, and the camera's going to make up the exposure. For instance, we're going to shoot the exact same scene. We've changed it to a high-speed shutter, but you should see no difference because it's going to make the same picture. But there's literally no chance of it being blurry. So there we are again, underexposed. So what do? Go to aperture. I'm sorry, I got to get out of the mode here. Go to exposure compensation, and it looks like it was already up 1.5, so we're going to go up +3. Let's see if that's bright enough. Yeah, that's good. Okay, I'll show you that one. So for an example, I'm going to stay at 1,250th of a second, which should freeze any action and also help you with camera blur. So I'm going to do a quick pan by the same subject and see if any of the frames blur. And when we look at the pictures, they, hang on a second, playback. They did not blur. Here, it's just these two right here. No blurring, and I was moving the camera. To illustrate again the shutter priority or the TV mode on the Canon, I'm setting the shutter speed to 1,000th of a second, and that should freeze action pretty well, even out here in soft light. So I'm going to go throw some pillows and let my assistant shoot the video of it, and we'll see if it does indeed freeze the action, okay? There we go. All right, to freeze action, here we go. 1, 2. Okay. Let's do it again. One of them will be good. And, okay, I'm going to spin it fast. Ready? All right. That'll do very well. So here you go. We just froze some wonderful pictures. And I hope that shows you a good little example of how you can freeze action at your house, on your job, whatever you need to, by using TV, selecting a high shutter speed. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, number 2, on the use of the DSLR. And of course, the Canon we're using here is really just a generic example. You have all the other brands. The features are similar, but sometimes the button layout is different and some of the features are a little different. However, these things that we're covering are basically universal to all. And I hope this helps. We'll do another lesson soon. Nevertheless, these that we're covering now, I think will serve you very well if you apply them. And good luck with your use of your new DSLR.